Hi there, YouTube. Joel from Jonesys. And today it's bittersweet. I've decided that I'm a builder, not a collector, and so this spectacular 1965 GMC Suburban is going on Bring a Trailer so that you guys can bid on it and own it. All right, guys, we're going to start this walk around video to kind of showcase exactly what you're potentially buying here. It is a 1965 GMC Suburban that has been retrofitted onto a later model 2000 Chevrolet Tahoe. To give a little bit of background about the Tahoe, the previous owner, the guy that I built this for and I bought it from, owned this Tahoe and he bought it brand new. And there's a Carfax report in the Bring a Trailer listing that shows that the chassis didn't have any accidents, it didn't have anything like that going on with it. So, knowing that it is a body swap style, you get all of the wonderful attributes of a 2000 model Tahoe, meaning the independent front suspension, the torsion bars, the coil spring rear suspension, as well as the overdrive automatic and the LS style 5.3 liter fuel injected small block. So to give you guys a little bit of backstory, I originally bought this rig when I was in high school and I kept it all those years. And then the customer that I actually built this for said that I was going to sell it to him. And I said, okay, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. So he made me an offer and I said, okay, let's do it. And then he came to me and said, well, now that you've sold it to me, I'm going to sacrifice my Tahoe and we're going to build the best 65 Suburban that we can build. And it's all going to be on that late model chassis. So let's take a look under the hood and see what we're working with. Okay, so underneath here, we decided to not do a full restoration. As you can see, it's a totally patina style rig, but while we had the body off, and we had things apart, we went ahead and tried to take care of a lot of the stuff that would be very difficult to do later on. So if you take a look inside the engine compartment, you can see that we painted the firewall. We also repainted the underside of the hood, and we coated all of this inner fenders and engine compartment stuff with a chassis black. Now, as you can see, we have the Vortec 5.3 liter LS style engine. The Tahoe, the donor Tahoe had approximately 120,000 miles on it when we disassembled it and swapped the 1965 body on it. We have since the conversion put on 20,000 miles. The whole powertrain has approximately 140 to 150,000 miles on it. I'm going to go through some of the details inside the engine compartment here. We have the stock 1965 GMC radiator that is outfitted with dual electric fans. We have power brakes. This power brake and pedal assembly is from a 72-ish Chevrolet truck. This is outfitted with Vintage Air. We use their conversion brackets as well as the AC compressor that was supplied with the Vintage Air kit. Over here, this is where we mounted the original equipment ECM from the Tahoe. The tuning to make this work in a non-emissions vehicle was provided by HAL EFI. They also supplied the standalone wiring harness. To wrap up the engine compartment, we installed a battery disconnect. It's got a battery disconnect right here so that you can disconnect all the electrical if you decide you're going to put it into storage. Now that we've taken a tour of the engine compartment, let's head inside and we'll check out what we did on the interior. Okay, first and foremost, let's talk about the gauge cluster. So I fabricated a completely custom gauge cluster using autometer instrumentation. You have your standard oil temp, water temp, fuel volts, as well as an electronic speedometer that has been calibrated to this engine. We've got some regular illumination for lights. You have reverse lights. And this right here, because this rig didn't actually have reverse lights built into it, we added some in the back and we put the reverse lights on a switch. So you turn the key on, and with the reverse lights on with this switch, it flashes at you to tell you that your backup lights are on. Other standard stuff, your high beam indicator, your check engine light, and your service 4-wheel drive. All of the transfer case is controlled from the original Tahoe switch panel right here. All of this stuff is functioning exactly the way that it should. Continuing down, you have your regular power port. This right here is just plugged in so you can charge a phone. Has a phone mount and a sync device right there. Coming back over, this is just your standard retro style radio, AM FM, and it does have some auxiliary connections so that you could plug in your phone. Coming back over to the driver's side, you have your standard headlights switch, which is all original to the 65, your wiper, as well as a hazard switch so that you have hazard lights, because there is no provision for that on the column, and then a cooling fan override. So you can kick that cooling fan on if you need to. The cooling fan does operate on its own, so this is kind of optional. You have your standard OBD2 diagnostic port right here underneath, so that if you have any issues you need to troubleshoot, that's where you plug in your diagnostic port. Okay, you guys will see underneath the dash here some dangling wires. We ran wiring so that you could put a backup camera on it, and I'll show you guys there, but we never actually finalized and terminated it in the rear view mirror. If you come back up to the rear view mirror, you'll see those are the pigtails for that backup camera. This guy right here, this is for the backup camera. There just wasn't a great clean way to get that bundle of wires up through the A-pillar around over to the rear view mirror. So we have it terminated here underneath the dash. If you ever wanted to hook it up, you could. This bundle of wire right here, also when we rewired the chassis, is for future brake controller if you ever wanted to tow something that required trailer brakes. So blue wire for the trailer brakes, red wire for power. This guy right here is the original 65 GMC emergency brake handle. It's a little tight with the vent right here in the dash, but it does function as intended. Moving over to the shifter. This is your standard directly mounted to the transmission. Transmission is a 4L60E, and this is a low car. It's pretty straightforward. It doesn't have any indicators other than the one that's on the top of the knob, but you can kind of feel your way through which gear you're gonna be in. Okay guys, we used the original 65 steering column, adapted it over to the Tahoe chassis with a couple of U-joints. Has great feel, no issues there whatsoever. Now onto the seat upholstery. The original 1965 GMC seat has been reupholstered in premium leather. Obviously the driver's seat, which has had 20,000 miles put on it, you can see it's a little bit worn, but it actually honestly looks and feels almost like it's new. Track adjustment works fine, and we have a self-retracting lap belt. Moving to the rear seat has really not ever been used. It has retractable belts on the side as well. I really love how the leather and the seats turned out. We did not scrimp at all in terms of the quality of the leather or any of the finishes on the interior. Again, this is a patina rig. We wanted it to look and feel like an old work truck, but be nice on the inside, comfortable to drive, air conditioning, things like that. And so we repainted everything on the interior, and we tried to make the interior as nice as we possibly could. So when you're driving this, it really does feel like you're driving something that's more modern, because it cruises down the freeway at 70 miles an hour, no problem. AC blows cold, it doesn't overheat, has none of those like typical classic car problems. It's really a nice balance of old and new. And the interior, again, nobody wants it to be a junky interior. So we spent a lot of time and effort to try to make this as clean and as period correct as we possibly could. We also added in a little bit of custom touch. We put some custom stitching in the headliner, just some pinstriping style stitching again, to kind of work through the interior and make it just a little bit nicer than what you would typically see in a work truck. All right, guys, that kind of covers the front portion of the interior. We'll go to the rear. I'll show you what we did at the rear. Like I said, I bought this rig in high school. It wasn't my first project, but I kind of got the disease very early on. My dad and I went up near Mount St. Helens. Everybody knows the eruption that happened in Mount St. Helens. And we found this truck, and we were always a Suburban family. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. We always had Suburbans, and I'd never seen a Suburban like this before. And I really, really enjoyed it. It's a 2-door Suburban. Where do you see a 2-door Suburban? So anyway, back to the actual build. This is pretty much exactly what it looked like when we got it. It had these bullet holes in the back tailgate. These are not stickers. Everybody comes up and says, "Oh boy, are those bullet hole stickers?" I'm like, nope, that's the real deal, and that's exactly how I found it. We did, however, when we did the patina on it, and I have a YouTube video that shows kind of the patina process and the matte clear coat finish that we put on this. You guys check out that YouTube video also, because it kind of goes through the process. We did also clean up a lot of this area around the jams to make sure all that stuff was sealed. We put drip rail seal all the way through the top to try to seal that really well, to try to preserve this as best we could. It is, however, because this has been driven quite a bit, 20,000 miles since we finished it, it is starting to show some bubbling at the rear quarters and behind the front fenders. But the beauty of a finish like this is that you could fix that stuff and patina it again, and you would never even know. So anyway, on to tailgate operation. This tailgate, because it has sat so long, never really functioned perfectly, and so we made some improvements here. We added some struts here because the original style telescoping supports for this rear glass didn't really work that well. We also added bear claw style latches. You can see the strikers right here and the bear claw style latches there. I would say that the function of this tailgate is probably 7 out of 10, but honestly, I don't think even when these things were new, they were all that good to begin with. All right, this rear cargo section is extremely spacious. There's a ton of room here. And you can also see that on the back of the seat, we replicated that same pinstripe design that is in the headliner in the front. These tracks right here are what secure the rear seat. So you could actually move the rear seat forward or back a little bit if you wanted to. Because we mounted retractable seat belts, it does have to be positioned in front of the wheel wells, or it has to be on this side of the wheel wells. Now you guys can see kind of the carpet. We went with imported wool carpet. This is extraordinarily durable carpet, and it is easy to clean. You can see I'm just brushing the stuff off, and it wears and works really, really well. There are 2 additional speakers in the rear, and it has a glued in foam kind of fabric headliner to try to cut down on some noise. We also added as much sound deadener to the floor and the firewall as we possibly could when we had it apart. Also, go back and check out some of my other older YouTube videos that I took when we were building this. You can see that we replaced the rocker panels and we replaced the floor pans because they were in pretty rough shape. Also in the listing, you can see some of the original photos of what the condition of this rig was like when we actually got it. All right, you guys can see the bear claw latches are very secure. And then the struts, this is a little finicky to get those hinges to work, but the back glass actually latches as well. All right, this is the original rear chrome bumper for the 65, and we cut an access hole right here so that you can access the jacking or cable lowering mechanism for the spare tire. That is exactly how it is done on the later model 2000 Chevy Tahoe. And so we have the actual toolkit and jack from the Tahoe in the back of the rig, so that if you have a spare tire, you can access the spare tire just as if you were doing it on the later model rig. Also, we outfitted the chassis with a hitch and a 7-way as well as a 4-way trailer light connector. All of the wiring, the chassis wiring harness has been replaced, and so that is fresh. This is the rear view camera that we talked about earlier that's not hooked up. You can see the wiring for that, like I said, is ran under the dash. Okay, in the restoration process, we replaced all of these rockers as well as the floor pans. Check out some of the build photos. You can see all the details for that. But what I wanted to show everybody is that the original style seat, how you access the rear seat. So this just folds forward. You can climb right in. And then also you'll notice that when we did these floor pans and rockers, we went ahead and painted the jambs shiny, so that there was a contrast between outside patina and inside nice. So when we did this, we put all new glass in it, and the glass has a very, very light tint. You can kind of tell. These are the original slider style windows, and it was outfitted with all new seals. It has all of the original trim, the custom badging, all of this anodized trim is all original. This is, again, the patina. You can see where we kind of faked some of the patina, but the vast majority of it is real, and it has held up extremely well, in my opinion. We did this build, finished probably 2016, I believe, and the matte clear coat that we've put on it has really done a great job. Like, you can wash it and it doesn't change the shine, and it has preserved this finish really, really well. So I think that kind of wraps up what everybody needs to know about the outside. Let's go ahead and get a cold start so you guys can see how it starts, and we'll take it for a test drive. All right, let's do a cold start. I mean, it starts exactly like every single modern fuel-injected vehicle. You don't have to wait, you just hit the key. Idle's great. We've got oil pressure, nothing on the water yet. Got a 1/4 tank of fuel, and we're charging just under 14 volts. So let's hop in and go for a ride. Okay guys, we're gonna pull out and go for a little test drive. Make sure no one's coming. Roll up my window. The exhaust is a Flowmaster. Hopefully that kind of comes through. It's got a nice throaty sound, a little aggressive when you accelerate hard, but it's not offensive. There's no hum or anything like that. 5.3 liter has enough power for this rig. I would guess that it's probably a little bit heavier than what the 2000 Tahoe would have been, but not significantly. Brakes work awesome. Power steering is super easy, especially with this big steering wheel. Get a turn signal. Having the overdrive is great. Like I said, this thing runs and drives awesome. Transmission was rebuilt in 2018 by the gentleman that I built this for, who unfortunately has passed away. He struggled with throat cancer for a very long time, and he is no longer with us. And so this rig was actually passed down to his son, and I was able to buy it from his son. And the only reason his son sold it back to me was because he had twins, and this is not the greatest rig for twins, young twins. Unfortunately, I just have come to the realization that all of my satisfaction in these vehicles is in the process of building them, not necessarily owning them. Even though I do really enjoy this vehicle, it just sits most of the time. And at the end of the day, after working on so many rigs like this all day long, I just don't use it as much as I thought I would. Hopefully you guys could hear the exhaust there. We're going about 55 miles an hour. Fourth gear. There is a little bit of wind noise. I don't know if you can pick up on that, but that's to be expected because this is a 1965 Suburban. Because this rig has been driven and shaken down for 20,000 miles, and there's not an excessive amount of miles on the chassis, and the chassis is in really good condition, I would have zero hesitation putting my family in this, hopping in and going on a long road trip. It's very reliable. It runs and drives great. Okay guys, it's fully warmed up. I'm gonna be quiet here. Maybe you can hear the electric fans. They're not offensive. I don't know if it comes across in the sound or the audio, but there is some vintage rattle, we'll call it. That rear hatch area, it kind of bounces around, it rattles a little bit. But honestly, that's going to happen with any vintage rig of this genre. I kicked on the air conditioning. It is blowing cold, feels great. And then these are exactly what they say. AC is all the way down. If you want heat, you go all the way up. This is your fan control. And then this switches up to defrost. Again, that's a vintage air unit, and it works really, really well. Well, I think that's going to wrap up this video. If you guys have any questions on this rig, do not hesitate to ask. When the auction is live, we're going to post a link in the description and we'll pin a comment. Good luck anybody that is going to bid on this unit. It's a nice one. I'm going to miss it, and I really hope that it goes to a good new owner. Thanks for watching.